You need to make sure you've planned in advance. Ready for me now? Howdo, and a very Merry Christmas. And today we are going to be putting in some cavities for pickups and things. Now this could very easily just be a very boring routing a cavity video, but there's a few little interesting points with the pickups that I'm going to put into here and a few little things that you need to make sure you've planned in advance. So I was going to use my pickup cavity routing template plate thing that I bought off some internet somewhere, but the custom pickups that have been made for this guitar slash bass thing have been hand wound in Croatia. Very splendid. Neck, middle, bridge. Okay, they are completely flat. See that? Totally flat down there. So this template that has the angled section on it isn't actually necessary. I need to make one that's that big. Just like this one. This is just a few sheets of plywood stuck together, cut out by hand. It's nothing complicated. Draw around the pickup, cut it out. Very, very simple. But notice on here I have two center lines drawn. So there's a straight 90-degree center line for neck pickup and middle pickup, but bridge pickups always sit at a slant, don't they? So there is a 10-degree center line drawn on there right through the center, so that will give me the correct angle for sitting at the bridge. Okay, so this is where some of the planning ahead comes in. What I'm going to do here is draw a line on where the edge of the pickup's going to be, so I'm not going to be interrupting this end of the neck. So that's not the center of the pickup, that's the far edge of it, so I know it's going to fit and not get in the way of that section. Similarly, I can mark off where the very edge of the bridge pickup can sit without getting in the way or getting too close to the actual bridge itself. After that, I can just center point between those two, so that's the outside edge of that pickup, that's the opposite outside edge of that pickup. Then I can put a center line in to know where the center of the center pickup is going to be. So, right hand edge, center, left hand edge. Now, we're talking about planning ahead. I want you to put a comment in down below right now if you've got to this point and you've already attached your neck. Put a comment in now, because I know you know what the problems are with attaching necks too early. For once in my life, I planned ahead accordingly and have not glued in this neck. Problem number one is very, very simple. We're going to use a big power router that's got a big flat base on it, which the neck would totally and utterly get in the way to cut out those pickup cavities right now. If you haven't figured out problem number two, keep watching. And of course, once you've added another layer, put a hat on and made yourself a nice hot coffee in what I have got to say is one of the best travel mugs I've ever owned. Genuinely, it actually works. And it's awesome. So, you know, support the series, go and buy one. Link down there. Once you've done all of that, then we can cut out the other ones. Hooray! There we go. Just thought I'd show you this last one where we're using that different center line on the template. That's a 10-degree angle. Took me ages to find out what angle that's supposed to be, but apparently 10 degrees is what generally everybody uses. And here comes planning ahead point number 2.5. Another massive reason to not put the neck in is because all of these pickup cavities need to be connected, so you can wire one up through the other and into the cavity box. Now, if you're using a pick guard of any sort, that is dead easy. All you're going to do is route a channel straight through the middle and they all get connected. We are obviously not doing that easy route and using pick guards. I don't really like pick guards. So we have to do option number 2, which is to drill a very long hole. Now, as you can imagine, a drill bit such as this ain't going to fit with the drill on there, even through that first section, let alone all the way through and possibly even into that final one. You can spend a fortune and buy extra long versions of these. You can even buy extenders for those as well that kind of have a tiny little slip in, they pop through and you Allen key them up and you tighten them and things get rather wobbly, I think. Now, one of the massive benefits of being an old school woodworker is we have tools like this. The good old brace and bit. So this is the brace, that is the bit, the auger bit. Now, even with whatever size you have, they're generally all the same length, pretty dang long, which will go all the way through. So if I start at that end of the neck pocket slightly high, I can then tilt slightly down and get most of the way in, certainly through into that middle one. If I can't get through to that third one, it's not a massive tragedy because there will be a cavity behind here for the knobs and switches that I might be able to drill across into there to get wires to come out. There's always one layer that needs to go on top of another that generally needs to be done before the first layer, and so on and so on and so on. There's a million different ways of building anything, let alone guitars. Have a think, plan ahead as best you can, because once you cut something off or drill a hole, it's really tricky to put it back again. So just make sure before you take the plunge that you've actually thought it through, that this is the best technique for what you're doing right now. Okay, so once I've put the tip where it wants to be, so I know it's not just going to go straight through the top of there, I then need to decide what kind of angle I want to have on here, which isn't going to be a lot. So I'm just looking down, just deciding roughly how much angle, and I'm going to say about that, about a finger's thickness at that point. It's very technical, isn't it? Right, once I've got that height checked, I'm then going to put the butt of the drill into my relaxed muscle, which I have plenty of, to hold the height. So as I stand still, I know that height then shouldn't change as I just rotate this to start moving through. It has a very satisfying squeak. Now at this point you might be thinking, oh no, I'm stuck because it's tapping up against here, but there's a collar on a lot of these brace and bits, and if you twist it one way it will give you a ratchet that you can carry on turning, and if you twist it the other way it'll ratchet the other way, allowing me to do almost full turns in between those ratchets. Hello. Okay, so we've got the hole from the neck pocket into the neck pickup, which goes through into the middle pickup. I'm not going to bother going through there. I think that's going to be too much hassle with knocking this section and possibly knocking this section as well. So once we have the knob cavity on the back, stop sniggering at the back, I'll then drill through from here into the cavity and from here into that cavity. So we'd best make a start on that then. Now, when we did the laser marking for the sign and such, I also very craftily marked off where the tone and volume pot's going to be, and this line is where the 5-way selector switch is going to be. Very, very faint, very easy to just sand those markings off, but it tells me exactly where I need to go. And all I'm going to do with that is stick a pilot hole right the way through the body, and then I can mark off cavities on the back then. Now, just like I did on the front, I'm going to put some masking tape where I'm going to draw lines and things, Just to make it stand out a bit more, and I don't need to dig in as deep, let's put a pencil hole. There we go, there's our 2 holes. So now I'm just going to draw a line straight through the centre of both of those to know where that should continue. Okay, so there's the centre of my pocket. So we need to have a hole big enough for 1 of those, 2 of those, and 1 of those. So one of these pots is 22 millimeters wide, and I want as little as possible either side of that to be cut out. What I do not want to do is encroach this cross area here, which I've marked up on this extra masking tape. I don't want to get interrupting that with any kind of cavity plate on the back. Yak! That is the bad thing. So that's the width of the actual cavity. Now obviously we'll need to be a little bit wider than that for the plate to sit inside, to recess into the body, but we've got room there. So with a pot there, and the 5-way selector switch there, it means the end of the cavity could be there. Now, I would quite often go for a ride midway through a build just to kind of change of scene, clear the head a little bit. No. But that's not happening today, not with this kind of weather. But if you want to go out in some slightly sketchy conditions, make sure you take Rail Rider with you. The Rail Rider app is a crash detection system. If the worst happens, the emergency services will be alerted and directed to your exact locations. So if you're not able to pick up the phone or you're not even visible to passers-by, you're still going to get some help. A massive thank you to Rail Rider for sponsoring this build series. Go and get it, sign up, ride protected, stay safe. Which makes it really easy to just cut out another jig, exactly the same as the pickup cavity jig. That's going to slot on there. And here we go. Right, and here we are back once again with the planning which bit comes first thing. So we've cut out the cavity for all of those tone pots and switches and things. But now we've got to think about the cavity plate. So do you make the cavity for that plate first, or do you make the plate first? Me, I always like to work around something that's actually physical. So I'm going to make the cavity plate first, then we'll draw around that. And I'm going to use this lovely piece of maple to match the fretboard, which, yes, this will be coloured in the same. And notice the way that the grains run on that actually as that sits at that angle, the grains are going to run alongside the guitar. Isn't that fortuitous? One cavity plate cut out, very, very simple. I've made it 3 millimeters wider on each side and a centimetre longer at each end so that you have space to put a screw in each side of that. Now, of course, at this point, you could make another template and you can go in with a router and skim that size off. However, I have a little bit of a problem with that. I only have one router bit that has the bearing at this end. And it's huge, it's way too long. So my template would need to be like at least ½ an inch thick. So all I'm going to do instead is I'm going to hold this plate down, draw around it very carefully, and then using a chisel and a hand router. So without pushing that all the way in, because you'll never get it out again, that's that done. So now comes the truly scary part of blind drilling. So I can go from this bottom edge of the pickup down here into that cavity, and I want to do the same from here. Now that runs almost to there. So if I go in from the back cavity at the end and just angle it very slightly, I should get onto there without poking a drill bit out the front or out the back. Pray for me now. sounded like it was making noises to me. Thought I'd have another look at this technique. And we're through. Unfortunately, it has popped that off there, but as long as that stays attached with the masking tape, that'll be really, really easy to just super glue that back down. You'll never see it. So that leaves us with the last thing of just widening these holes out to the correct size. I'm going to use a step bit for that. To give us something like that. Now we can glue the neck in. But not until you've watched this video here, and then I'll see you next week. Tatty bye. God bless.